Another Friday, another opportunity to share with you, Ghana for my blunt thoughts in the national interest. My name is Benjamin Akakpo, and this morning I've titled my piece, The Sheer Struggle to Keep It All Together in an Economy Being Stripped Naked. The bare bones of our situation. Come with me. Fellow Ghanaians, our economy is getting battered. It's taking a daily beating. It's being picked apart the same way a bad football team would be decimated by an excellent and well-organized one. Every morning we wake up, the cedi has lost value, slumping it even further to international currencies. Or the monetary policy has been hiked, further inflicting economic pain on us, the people. It's beginning to feel like an incessant bludgeoning with a sledgehammer that leaves ordinary folk, from businessmen and women to consumers of products, with daily monetary hemorrhages and financial nosebleeds that simply have no cure. There is no respite, no proper policy direction, and nowhere to run. From Axim to Zabzugu, the economic temperature of the Ghana man is at breaking point. The Ghanaian has always been known to be an economic wizard who can pull all kinds of strings to stay afloat, even in the most turbulent times. We call it. What I see now, however, tells me the ordinary man is either losing his touch or the economic bite we are facing is crushing his bones with more pressure than even a saltwater crocodile can muster in its dreadful snapping jaws. In simple terms, Ghana for, we're tired. What the heck is this? Can we even call this disastrous horror show an economy? Do we have an economic management team at post, or have they paid too much attention to medical song and so gone to sleep? Semwada, Monsore na boys are brepa. When some 6 years ago, Vice President Bawumia taunted the former administration's economic management team, asking whether anyone could remember them, some of us were both skeptical and amused at his tongue-in-cheek profusions. We all had a good laugh, however. After all, our economic messiahs had arrived. A fantastic economic management team, in the Veep's words, had been put together. Professor John Bafo, Dr. Akoto Osei, Dr. Efria Akoto, Alan Chematin, Boachie Jako, Ken Oforiatta, Yawo Safo-Mafo, and of course, Dr. Bawumia himself as head of that team. What a solid team, the Vice President exclaimed. Finally, we're going to see economic management like never witnessed before in our nation's long and proud history. Well, we have seen exactly that, in its worst form. An economic stake has been driven through our trusting hearts, and now we can only gnash our teeth in anguish for having been so gullible. Yes, gullible. How else can I describe it when we're promised production and slapped hard with taxation? Told we're sitting on money, and now we have to go to the IMF for a paltry $3 billion just to stay economically afloat. We're promised an economic heaven. That economy is now grinding in the dirt. Shall we wail in lamentation? Hit the streets to demonstrate our consternation? While all these are okay, I know we would be much better off if the purported big economic brains handling our economy woke up, rose to the challenge, and got us out of this economic hellhole. I do not know whether our Vice President himself still believes in the things he said about this administration's economic management team, but every step of the way, this administration has given credence to the skeptics, and the big talk of those in power has proven to be no more than the vain platitudes of con artists and scam operators. Yes, we the people are smart, but we got outsmarted on this one. The solid economic management team has vaporized on us, and all our hopes have gone up in smoke. Poof, just like that. Just next door, the Ivory Coast is doing magic with its economy. Our president is good friends with Monsieur Ouattara. He could take a leaf from his economic management book and learn a thing or two. After all, if you do not know something, or if someone consistently fares better than you, there should be no shame in asking for lessons so you too can be better. I am sad to say this, Ghana for, but truth be told, Ghana is fast turning into an economic disaster of a country in which to live. Quite curiously, the very words copiously spewed back then by the very people who today have gone mute are coming home to roost like chickens to haunt them. There is a trending video of Mr. President saying years ago that our cedi was weak and weightless, hata hata, like we say in P. If our currency was that feckless then and not able to stand on its feet, please help me out, Mr. President. How would we possibly depict it now? It must in the least be in some sort of coma with the way things are going. It must be in a vegetative state. I also recall how Vice President Bawumia on October 12, 2020, almost 2 years ago exactly, boasted about how his government had changed the trajectory of the cedi as inherited from the former administration, stating this was why the exchange rate had only moved from 4 cedis to the dollar to 5.8 cedis to the dollar at the time. He went on to say, if the NDC had been in power, the rate would have moved from 4.2 cedis to the dollar to 16 cedis to the dollar in a matter of 8 years. Well, here we are. And in just 6 years, the rate has moved under the brilliant economic management team of the MPP from about 4 cedis to the dollar to almost 12 cedis to the dollar. In fact, in January 2017, when President Akakpo and Dr. Bawumia took over the management of our economy, the cedi traded at 4 cedis 25 to the dollar. Only 6 years on, that has almost tripled to 11.62 cedis to the dollar as of yesterday. Some economic watchers even fear we could hit 15 cedis to a single dollar by end of year. What a sticky situation to be in. What an unbridled mess this makes of things for everybody. I guess that saying about being careful, even when what you wish upon your enemies, is true. You just might fall into the pit you dig for them or wish them to fall into. I also remember clearly how our president, while in opposition, taunted the Mills Mahama administration. In one of his rallies, he said, and I quote, "In the time of Kufuor, $1, 1 cedi. In the times of Mills and Mahama, 2 cedis, $1. If I were they, I would say to the people of Ghana that I am sorry. We are sorry for the poor work we have done. We are going to go and think about ourselves." But that is not the people we're dealing with. The fruits of office, the money under the table has become sweet for them, so they are determined to stay. Are we going to allow that to happen? In Kufuor's time, one of the people who advised and helped him to develop a strong cedi was my running mate, Mahamudu Bawumia. Then, he was the deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana. It is one of the reasons I have brought him to come and join me, that we will work on the cedi and create, again, a strong cedi that will be able to allow us develop our economy. We have told the world that under our leadership, we're going to turn our backs on the old economy, the raw material exporting economy, and build a new industrial value-adding economy in our country that will bring jobs for our people, and especially for the young people of our country. That is the goal of the MPP government, the administration of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. End of quote. Those are not my words. They are the words of our president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, just a few years ago, when his thirst for power was at its peak. Did he mean them when he uttered those words? I cannot say. This I can say for sure, though. Today, the president sings from a very different hymn sheet. Looking back, though, listening to himself, reflecting on all these things he said, and now pondering what his administration has done while in power, I sometimes wonder how our president can sleep at night. I honestly do. It's so sickening. The worst part for me is how this has led to such mistrust among young people that they are either apathetic to the possibility of ever getting the right leadership or pessimistic about any real positive change ever being brought to bear. Either way, that is a very dangerous slope on which to leave our youth. But can I fault them when grown men and women have given up on our system? Can I? A story was shared with me about how someone who had over $200,000 in his bank account wanted a chunk of that just a few days ago, but the bank couldn't get anything above 1% of that, the equivalent of $2,000 for him. What? His own money, oh, his own money. We were very recently told the 750 million Afrexim Bank facility would cause the dollar to plummet against the cedi to the point where it wouldn't be worth holding on to the American greenback. Omoye City. Today, the dollar is pegged at 11 cedi 62. Again, we're being told the Cocoa syndicated loan of $1.2 billion will turn things around. I, for one, am not holding my breath. There's been too much deceit, too much inconsistency, too many failed promises, and far too many non-performing policies for me to take any of such rhetoric seriously. To make matters worse, the International Monetary Fund is warning developing countries such as Ghana to be careful when using monetary policy tools to control inflation. The IMF argues that overhiking policy rates could lead to difficult economic moments for citizens, while low policy rates could also cause economic stagnation and a recession. This, dear friends, is looking like an uphill task every which way you turn or look. Depending on where you bank, if you're on a facility like I am, you may have noticed a hike in the rate of interest you have had to pay over the last few months. If you're not in a facility already, we all know the rates are cutthroat now. And if you were compelled to go for a loan, even as our government continues to crowd out the private sector by falling so heavily on loans from our local banks, it would cost you more than just an arm and a leg. The bank would probably take another limb for good measure. And where does that leave the ordinary man but buried under the rubble of economic hardship? And all what this hardship is doing is spawn more and more criminality. Fraudsters are on the rampage. In fact, just a few days ago, a colleague from right here at work got a call and suspected it was a fraudster. So he called me to listen into the conversation. The scary thing was that the scam message had come from my colleague's bank's own text system on which it communicates with this person. I advised he tell the person he would go to the bank to give the text message code details this person was requesting, and the person hung up immediately. That is how bad it's got. Before I end, I would like us to take a snapshot of our economic situation, the hole into which we have dug ourselves with our fiscal recklessness. Here we go. Just walk with me. This is all on the galloping inflationary rates. And look at it. Inflation is now at 37.2% from 33.9% in August. And of course, that means that's an increment of 3.3%. Food inflation stands at 37.8%. Non-food inflation at 36.8%. Follow me. When you look at the trajectory, look at where we were on the 1st of January, 13.9%. It escalated to 23.6% in April. Now it stands at 37.2%. 37.2%. That's an addition of over 23%, about 23.3%. Then you look at the breakdown. Inflation for imported items is at 40.7%, and then the inflation for domestic items is at 35.8% per the Ghana Statistical Service. Of course, if you hit the market, depending on what you're getting, things may be a little different. But look at the regional breakdown, depending on where you are in our country. If you look at the more green belt or the shade, that shade of green, both of them look cyan. But you would be looking at 25% here, representing communities like the Upper West, the Northern region. Then the cyan color, Bono East, around 28.5%, getting to the 30%. And then Curry, leading to the orange-colored 35%. 40% is getting disastrous at this point, and 45%. Now you would notice the central region, 41.9%, is right on this belt. And then in the eastern and greater Accra regions, 45%. So especially in the greater Accra region, you just see how this will impact the cost of living, 45.3%. The breakdown, I wouldn't go through all of them, but look at water, where it's shot up to. Now we're buying sachet water for 50 pesos, 58.9%. If you're thinking of cereals and cereal products, 46%. Fish and other seafood, 44.5%. If you are the kind that goes for plant products, infusions, tea, mate, it's shot up by at least 40%. Oils and fats, 39%. Then, ready-made food and other products that you get right off the top, 36.7%. Overall food inflation, of course, at 37.8%. Cocoa drinks in our own country, we produce cocoa, 25.5%. Vegetables, tubers, plantains, and the rest, look at the hike, over 20%. But come with me, let's look at this trajectory. It paints a certain picture. You would realize that the inflationary rate has always been beneath the policy rate, the monetary policy rate of the Bank of Ghana. But look at what interesting bit happens. Right from February 2022, the second month of the year, it went higher. 15.7% to 14.5%. Some feel that is exactly when we should have started doing something about our monetary policy rate. But we waited, and now the divergence kept going on, 19.4% to 17%, and now look at where it is. Our monetary policy rate has been hiked by 250 basis points to 22, but look at where the inflationary rate is, 37.2. Look at the gap, and you'll see what we have to grapple with. In terms of debt restructuring and its effect on pension schemes, we bring this up for a reason. About 94%, representing about 3.7 billion Ghana cedis of the 3.9 billion Tier 2 pensions. You contribute to Tier 2, pay attention. These contributions placed in government securities may be affected by a probable debt restructuring program. Why? A debt restructuring will mean the yield to maturity of government bonds and bills will be extended, or better still, the haircut policy enforced. And that would mean if an asset such as the holdings of a particular government bond is worth 1 million Ghana cedis, given a 20% haircut, you would just be looking at getting 800,000 cedis, no longer the 1 million you put in. Even risk-free investments are now risky in this country. So almost the entire pension funds of Tier 2 contributors have been invested in the government of Ghana instruments, particularly bonds. This is because government securities are classified essentially as risk-free. But like we said, even the risk-free is now risky. According to the IMF, domestic debt is often held predominantly by domestic creditors who will suffer losses. Sovereign debt distress can easily spread to domestic banks, pension funds, that's what we're talking about, households and other parts of the domestic economy. And this can worsen the economic malaise that made the debt restructuring necessary in the first place. So looking at our sovereign domestic debt restructuring, restructuring domestic debt is like surgery. You only do it if you must, and you avoid it if it might do more harm than good. Where we are, I guess our hands are tied. And if we decide to go on a haircut spree with our pension schemes, God help us. God help us. The cookie is crumbling. I pray, even as we work, that we can salvage our economy, because the doors on which we are knocking now, God help us. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. These are my blunt thoughts served to you raw, hot, and edited, and diluted on another Friday morning. God richly bless Ghana.